international news, I want to let you know about where we stand with the ongoing negotiation between Russia and Ukraine as U.S. leaders continue to try to work out a ceasefire deal. Right now, U.S. negotiators are on their way to Moscow to meet with, or actually right now on their way, not to Moscow, but to meet with Putin about a potential ceasefire. And one of the things that President Trump has said is that there's a good chance to make a deal. And while there may have been some progress over the weekend, there may be a complicated path forward. I mean, this is no surprise, but this weekend offered no break in the fighting for Ukraine. Peace talks were underway in Florida. Senior Trump administration officials met with Ukrainian negotiators Sunday in Miami. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio sat down with Ukrainian leaders to try to nudge the peace process forward. Details from the emerging plan aren't clear yet, but Ukraine would clearly have to cede some of its territory back to Russia. No apparent breakthroughs happened, but Rubio did say that there was progress. The next step, Steve Witkoff, one of the president's chief negotiators, is now going to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. And actually, it will be in Moscow. I'm taking a look at this. They will be meeting in Moscow, and of course, that is where Witkoff is headed now. President Trump, on his way back to Washington yesterday, said, like, the weekend talks did make headway. He says that he has spoken to the negotiators and they're doing well. Ukraine's got some difficult problems. But President Trump did say that he thinks Russia would like to see the war end. But that's the critical question here, right? Because Putin has given new indications that despite a willingness to talk, he's not scaling back his ambitions since invading Ukraine 4 years ago. So Putin seems to be determined to keep fighting despite heavy losses to Russian troops, apparently confident that over time he's inching his way to victory. So we'll keep you updated as this unfolds. In the meantime, also in national news, or rather international news, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is making a major political gambit, and it could have a big impact on America's push for peace in the Middle East. Benjamin Netanyahu is asking Israeli President Isaac Herzog for a pardon. He was greeted by protesters as he arrived to testify at his corruption trial 1 day after making that request. But it's an unprecedented request. Netanyahu says that he needs the pardon to unify the country and end the political distraction of his long-running corruption probe. That started almost a decade ago. He also noted President Trump recently made the same request to Herzog and called the case, quote, political. The request has already triggered a significant public backlash, and it also faces legal challenges, with most experts pointing out that under Israeli law, a pardon can't stop a trial without an admission of guilt. So that is key here. The request comes as a new series of Israeli strikes is rattling the fragile peace process in the West Bank. A major anti-terror operation is underway, and further north in Lebanon, Israel is setting up attacks on Hezbollah targets. In Syria, an Israeli raid on Friday reportedly left at least 13 people dead, and Hezbollah's leader says it's preparing a military response to the recent Israeli airstrikes on its top military leader. So we'll keep you updated as that progresses. Meanwhile, a little closer to home here in national news, lawmakers are now calling for a review as you take a live look at the Capitol building there in Washington, D.C. They are calling for a review of the Trump administration's drug cartel strikes. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle say Congress should review these military strikes on alleged drug trafficking boats after a report that accuses the Pentagon chief of violating the laws of war. Since September, the U.S. military has killed at least 83 suspected drug traffickers in 21 known strikes on these alleged drug boats in international waters. President Donald Trump's administration has targeted several boats coming out of Venezuela for months, and it says the boats are carrying illegal drugs headed for the United States. But a September 2nd mission is facing new scrutiny, and this comes after a Washington Post report claims a second strike was ordered after it became clear there were survivors in the water. Military officers say they were following a directive from War Secretary Pete Hegseth to, quote, kill everybody. Now, Hegseth calls the report fake news, and President Donald Trump is standing by him. But lawmakers want answers. They say they want public hearings and to put people under oath and to understand how this is working. The U.S. military action has raised tensions with Venezuela, and President Trump announced Saturday the country's airspace should be considered closed. He's downplaying any questions of an imminent air attack. The president said don't read anything into it to reporters. But President Trump also confirms he spoke with Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro, over the phone. He hasn't shared any details details or confirmed reporting that he gave Maduro an ultimatum to leave the country immediately, but we'll keep you updated if we learn any new details there, because that obviously significantly affects what is going on near the Caribbean and Latin America.